As we begin our journey to understanding how it is that cultural and linguistic diversity affect the education of our nation's children, it's important to just look at where all the diversity may be. Now, this map is fairly easy to understand because it shows historically where diverse groups have lived. Of course, we have the border states down the south and west region, we have the southeast, and then up along the eastern seaboard as well. You can kind of see very slightly up there in Rhode Island where you are, although that doesn't really give you a great idea of what everything looks like. But if we were to blow that up, we can say, hey, okay, what's the diversity like in Rhode Island? And the U.S. Census Bureau doesn't just lay things out in terms of numbers. They actually like providing something called the diversity index, which is a measure of the probability that two people pulled out of the same region or area, let's say county in this case, what is the probability that they would be from different racial or ethnic groups? So think of this, if you have a lot of people and they're all from the same racial group, the probability they're going to be different is going to be very low. So you get a low diversity index. So back in 2010, that diversity index was about 39.84 Rhode Island, okay? And if you want to see maybe a little bit more breakdown in terms of actual racial ethnic groups, here you go. The diversity index for Providence County specifically back in 2010 was 52%, so higher than the general state average at that time. Now, what's really important is not just that number, which shows the amount of diversity, but more so changes in diversity. If we look at the change in racial and ethnic diversity in the United States on this particular page, you can see that the big changes are increasing or occurring in those areas that traditionally did not have a lot of diversity. We're talking the Midwest or the upper parts of the Northeast, some places out in the rural western parts of the United States. And so I think this is a lot more informative because it's telling us that no matter where we go in the U.S., we're going to have to deal with diversity in one way or another. In fact, if we look more closely again at Rhode Island now in 2020, you can see that the diversity index for the entire state has gone up about 10 percentage points, 39 to 49. And if we look closely there at the very top county, which is Providence, we can see that its diversity index has also increased from 52 to 60.3%. And so there have been changes in the diversity and the makeup of the cultural and ethnic population of the state of Rhode Island. And again, this is just to emphasize that no matter where you are, you need to learn how to deal with diversity and understand how it's affecting the education of our children. And while understanding the diversity of the population in terms of racial and ethnic distribution is important, another thing that really is important is the extent to which we recognize language. And in fact, if we look a little bit more closely at languages throughout the United States, you can see that if we skip over Spanish, which pretty much accounts for 68 to 70% of the population, we have a number of other languages that are spoken within the populations, and including, as you can see way up here, Portuguese would be the one for Rhode Island.